Imagine waking up before sunrise. You are in a one-room house with no heat except a fireplace. Everyone in your community will tell you the same thing. Every neighbor, every relative, every person you'll see today believes the devil is real, active, and possibly living right next door. That wasn't a metaphor in Salem Village in 1692. That was just Tuesday. Salem Village wasn't even really a town. It was a scrappy farming settlement on the edge of Salem Town, Massachusetts. Poorer, more isolated, and constantly overshadowed by its wealthier neighbor down the road. Most families here didn't trade in goods or ships like the merchants in Salem Town did. They scraped a living out of rocky New England soil, grew what they could, and argued endlessly over where exactly one farm's fence line ended and another's began. Daily life ran almost entirely on two things: work and church. Farming took up nearly every waking hour. Plowing, planting, tending livestock, chopping wood, hauling water. There was no plumbing, no real medicine, no anesthesia. A bad cut could easily kill you. A cold winter could kill you. Childbirth killed a shocking number of women outright. Life expectancy hovered somewhere in the 30s and 40s, and infant death was so common that parents sometimes waited to fully name a child until it looked like the baby might survive. And every single one of those hardships got filtered through the same lens: Puritan religion. These were people who believed, without a shred of doubt, that they were living inside a cosmic war between God and Satan, and that Satan was actively recruiting on earth, through witches, through weakness, through sin. Church wasn't a Sunday activity. It was the operating system. Sermons ran for hours. Missing church was a punishable offense. Children were raised to see themselves as inherently sinful from birth, constantly at risk of eternal damnation unless they stayed vigilant. Now stack a brutally hard, isolated, religiously terrified community on top of a string of very real, very stressful events. There was a smallpox epidemic. There was a bitter winter. There was a recent war with indigenous tribes on the frontier that had sent traumatized refugees flooding into the area. And there was a nasty, ongoing feud between Salem Village and Salem Town over money, land, and independence. People were already primed to believe something was deeply wrong. Then, in early 1692, two young girls in the house of the village minister, Samuel Parris, started having fits, screaming, contorting their bodies, complaining of being pinched and bitten by invisible hands. A doctor examined them, found nothing physically wrong, and reached the only conclusion that made sense inside this worldview: witchcraft. The girls were pressured to name names, and once the first few accusations landed on Tituba, an enslaved woman in the Paris household, and two other local women already viewed as outsiders, something switched on that nobody could turn back off. More girls started having fits. More names got named. And crucially, the accused weren't random. They were disproportionately women who didn't fit neatly into the community. The poor, the elderly, women without husbands to vouch for them, women who'd been in property disputes, women who were simply disliked. Trials moved fast, and the evidence was almost entirely spectral. Testimony that a person's spirit or specter had appeared to the accuser and tormented them, something that, by definition, could never be independently verified or disproven. If you were accused, there was barely a way to prove your innocence. Confessing, bizarrely, could save your life, since confessed witches who named others were seen as repentant. Denying it, staying firm that you were innocent, often got you hanged. By the time the hysteria burned out later that year, roughly 200 people had been accused and 20 were executed, 19 hanged. One man crushed to death under stones for refusing to enter a plea at all. Neighbors testified against neighbors. Children testified against parents. Entire families were financially and socially destroyed even if they were never formally charged, just because the accusation itself was enough to poison a reputation permanently. What's strange, looking back, isn't that people believed in witches. Nearly everyone in that era did, across Europe and the colonies both. What's strange is how fast an entire community's normal social trust evaporated once fear, Isolation, religious certainty, and old grudges were all allowed to feed each other at the same time. A land dispute from 10 years earlier could resurface as a witchcraft accusation. A personality nobody liked could become proof of a pact with the devil. Living in Salem Village in 1692 wasn't really about magic at all. It was about what happens to ordinary people, farmers, parents, churchgoers, when a small, tight, frightened community runs out of other explanations for why bad things keep happening and turns on itself to find someone to blame.